he seems really obvious to me. I think a woman could do this better. Are there any female con artists out there? And I think women could be better at it than men, because I think that women are inherently more trustworthy, right? We are less likely to be criming it out in the world. Or at least that's the bias that we have about women. It's, women are safe, men are not, right?
Welcome to our latest Book Reporter Talks To interview, where our guest today is an oft guest of ours, which I am very excited about. It's Julie Clark. And we're going to be talking about her latest thriller, The Lies I Tell, which, like her last book, The Last Flight, was a Book Reporter bestseller selection. And I am just so excited to talk to her about this book. I got to see Julie last week when she was in town for a party for Source Books, her publisher, and Thriller Fest. And I had to pull myself back from asking her these questions because I said I wanted to make sure I shared them with everybody, not just me learning the answers. So I'm looking forward to talking to you today, Julie. Welcome. Always good to see you.
So happy to be here. Always fun to be here.
So the tagline on the promo wrap, because this book was wrapped in this piece, I got to pull apart and I just was going to try and have it over here, was two women, many aliases, one last con. So let's start with you telling us about The Lies I Tell.
So The Lies I Tell is the story of a con woman named Meg Williams, and she assumes many names, travels the country, targets a lot of different people, and all the while she's perfecting her craft for the big con that she plans on pulling on the man who she believes kind of ruined her childhood and derailed her life. And so she returns to Los Angeles. She's ready. It's been 10 years and she's ready. She's built all the skills that she needs. And what she doesn't know is that there's an investigative reporter, Kat Roberts, who was collateral damage on a con that Meg pulled many, many years ago, who is seeking her own revenge. And she has been waiting for Meg to return. And now that she has, Kat is going to infiltrate Meg's life under an assumed name and hopefully infiltrate her life enough to bring her down.
And it really does go from there. It's these two women. It's like a little cat fight going back and forth about who knows what and who doesn't. Mm-hmm. What was the kernel of the idea that prompted this story? Like, where did you... Cons? Was it con people?
Yeah, it was con artists. I was listening to a podcast called Who the Hell is Hamish? I was waiting for my youngest to finish his piano lesson, and his piano lessons were like an hour long. And so I would sit in the lobby of this apartment building, and sometimes I'd have writing work and sometimes I'd be, just kind of chilling, listening to podcasts. And I was listening to this podcast called Who the Hell is Hamish? And it's an Australian podcast about this guy named Hamish who, is a con artist, and he kind of convinces these women to fall in love with him. He's very charming and very, suave and all of that, and then convinces them to invest a ton of money into these like can't lose investments, right? And I remember listening to this and thinking like, personally, and all the women that I know that I'm friends with would be pretty skeptical about this charming guy swooping in and within months, maybe living with us, or and then convincing us to invest like tens of thousands of dollars at a time, often more than once. Mm-hmm. I think I don't know. I'm really skeptical. I'm a very paranoid person, so I'm super skeptical of pretty much anybody. But I feel like he seems really obvious to me. I think a woman could do this better. Are there any female con artists out there? And I think women could be better at it than men, because I think that women are inherently more trustworthy, right? We are less likely to be criming it out in the world. Or at least that's the bias that we have about women. It's, women are safe, men are not, right? And so I wanted to explore that, and the other thing that I really wanted to kind of dive into was this idea that, women are also really often underestimated by powerful men, especially. We're sort of talked down to, and, oh, you're a little bit emotional. Maybe you should go calm down, and I think that sort of dichotomy of like women are trustworthy and yet they're not really smart enough to do the hard things. I wanted my main character, Meg, to really exploit that little lane between the two.
Yeah, and she does. She completely does. I was thinking also the Tinder swindler. Like all
Yeah,
these people gave this man all this money.
I know. I
Who
don't
would
understand it.
who would give somebody $25,000? Who would?
Honestly, if one of my best friends said I need $25,000, I'd be like, gosh, that's good luck.
I
You know,
know. I know.
that's terrible.
If people in my family called and said they need that, I'd be
Yeah,
like, okay, like, what do
yeah,
you really need this for? Like, seriously? And it
yeah.
said it's like, I'll just wire it to you. I'm like, really? You
I
know?
know. I know. I try not to judge.
Right.
But at the same time, it was sort of trying to get into that mentality of like, what would my main character Meg have to do in order to convince these people that she was legitimate, right? And so I tried to give her kind of fuzzy, fuzzy professions, you know. And so she's a college student in her early years, and then she becomes a life coach at one point. You know, things, she's a dog walker, I think, at one point, like things that, you know, are a little hard to verify, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, though, she does come back. When she comes back to Los Angeles, she is an actual legitimate real estate agent. She gets her license as a way to pull her final con. And it's pretty deep. She goes pretty deep. But, you know, I mean, if I did a little research, and, you know, you can get your real estate license within a year, with a calendar year. So if you have a plan and you have a target and you know what your deadline is, like, you can do it, you know.
Backtrack to there.
Yeah.
How much did you know about con artists? Like, did you actually start studying con artists then? Like listening to every podcast to work on developing the characters?
I tried not to listen to too many podcasts, because what I didn't want to do is appropriate any like existing cons. I really wanted Meg's thinking to be unique to her. And so what I didn't want is for somebody like me, who's completely obsessed with con artists, to be like, I heard that one, you know, you took that from that podcast, or, you know. And so what I really wanted to do was just dive into the psyche of a con artist. And so there is a book, Marie Konnikova, I think is the author's name. And it is, I'm looking over on my shelf, the Confidence Game. And she writes about the psychology of a con artist. And, you know, Meg is sort of not quite the type of real con artist that we see. I think real con artists out there are somewhat sociopathic and definitely narcissistic. And Meg is a little bit of those things, but not that much. Like Meg doesn't con people because she likes it. She cons people because they need it.
Yeah, they deserve it. They deserve it. They deserve what's coming to them.
Yeah.
Did you develop all her traits before you start writing, or did that happen as come along? Like, you knew she was going to be a real estate agent, you knew certain things, but others evolved?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, all characters, when you start putting them on the page at first, are pretty two-dimensional, and you're like, it's a woman. She is about 35, maybe 40, I don't know, you know. And then as you're starting to give her backstory and to flesh out who she is and kind of what she wants and where she came from and how she came to be a con artist, you start to sort of get more of those personality traits. But one thing I did want her to be is kind of like sharp and savvy, a little sarcastic and bold. Like I wanted her to be somewhat fearless, you know, like she's got nothing left to lose. She's already lost everything. And so she really doesn't care, you know. And I really liked writing that aspect of her character, because it's the opposite of who I am, you know.
That's exactly. You know, early in the book, she's got this great line: I learned that the worst can happen and I'll still be okay. Life is filled with lessons. We can either choose to suffer from them or learn from them. And the learning that Meg does is not what we think. In her case, she's learning about her future victims. It's a perfect setup for the book. Do lines like that line, because I pulled it out like right away, was that an early line or a later line when you got to know her better?
Probably later, when I got to know her better. I don't remember. Most of those most impactful lines I find later on revision and rewriting, and sort of after the main plot is developed and after everything, I'm starting to really shade in the color of, you know, the world and who she is, and those lines come usually last. Yeah.
It was so good, because you're just there were a couple that I just pulled out.
Yeah.
And she also talks about not everything in the con goes as planned. She said, I learned to see the holes in a plan, how to anticipate when an answer might be no, and they take that option away. And I feel like this is the same in editing a book. It's the same as you're writing and editing. You're always looking for the plot holes and then seeing if they work or not. And then I might have to throw this one out, because even though I think it's great, it's not going to work here. Am I on the right track?
Definitely. I mean, it's absolutely how writing a book works is, you want your characters to go through certain things and you want certain things to happen, but not always, it doesn't always match up. When you start aligning all the edges of every little plot point, some just don't fit and they don't work. And as much as you love that section or that paragraph or that chapter or whatever it is, you have to drop it. Yeah.
I have to like pull this out, like, oh no,
Yeah.
why? Oh dear, oh dear. So let's talk about Kat. So what do readers know about her? What can they know about her from the beginning?
She's an investigative reporter whose career, she started out at the LA Times, like a really high internship, and working under an investigative reporter who was working on a big story about a principal who kind of abused his power. And so she wants to figure out sort of what she's trying to make her mark. She's trying to assert herself. She's one of like 3 or 4 reporters who are working under him, and she's the only female. The rest are men, and she's finding herself sort of delegated to getting coffee and lunches, and she's wanting to kind of assert herself a little bit. And so she makes the decision to kind of go a little rogue, and she takes a chance, and it backfires a little bit. And it all has to do with Meg and what happens with Meg. So when the book opens, we find Kat sort of, her career since that point has just nosedived. She's writing clickbait articles for blogs and the internet, and she's making, pennies per word, right? It's just, she's not where she should be. And she blames Meg for that. And so she has always been fascinated by Meg. Nobody listened to her when she said, I think that this woman, Meg, is behind all of this stuff, and nobody listened to her. And so she's determined to kind of prove everybody wrong.
And she's been taking notes all this time. She's got
All
these
this
notebooks all this time of what's going on. It's there's a real estate change of hands that happens here that I have never heard about before. It's a quit claim deal. And okay, tell us about how you learned about, I mean, I've never heard of a quick claim deal. I know a lot about real estate, but that was something completely new. So
I first learned about it. Yeah, I first learned about quit claim when I was going through my own divorce, and so one party can quit claim the title to a house to another person, and it's a pretty simple process, but it does require both people to agree to it. One of my best friends that I grew up with is a real estate agent, and I ran everything by her, and she was rather worried at the end of it. She was like, oh my goodness, this could happen, and so but yeah, it was challenging to write the book in a way that didn't come off as like a real estate manual, on like how real estate deals work, and my mom was a real estate agent for many, many years. My ex-husband was a real estate agent for many years. So like I have a lot of background knowledge about real estate in the world, and especially in California, which is why I made sure to set this big on here in Los Angeles, because I felt like I have enough people here who can tell me like, that's not how it works here. This is how it works. But yeah, my friend Allison was really my go-to person.
And it's funny because you're also talking about things because you really know Los Angeles, and the politics of certain places and what could be pulled off and what couldn't be happening. And if somebody went rogue in this way, it would not work out well. And it was very, very interesting. But it's sort of, if your boots on the ground in the area, a lot more of, there's a string of streets that will be totally different than the streets around them and how things will happen. Yeah. So Kat has had something happen to her, and her therapist recommended that she write a fictional account where she was in control and could decide how it ends, and she'd have the power. It's really interesting. Last year, Chris Whitaker, who wrote We Begin at the End, told us that that's how he got his character of Duchess. He was held up in a part of London.
Right. That's
and they knifed him, and they took his phone and everything, and he was cut and he was traumatized. And they said, invent a character and write that character. And that was Duchess. And I found it so interesting because I had never heard about it as a therapy tool. And when you wrote it here too, I was like, this is so interesting to write your way out.
Did we talk to him about that before I wrote the book? Or
I talked to him, I'm trying to remember when. I talked to him like when the book first came out.
Yeah,
but it was so interesting to me that it is a way to overcome trauma. And I remember him telling us that story and how he came back to her when he lost all the money in the stock market and didn't
I
tell
remember telling
anybody.
the story.
Like
Yeah.
he said, he kept coming back to this character. So when you had that there, how did you hear about it as a therapy tool? Like, how did you, because it wasn't from Chris, I'm sure it was
I
probably
don't
from a
think so.
therapist somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something, I've been in therapy. I know a lot of people who have been in therapy. I have friends who have been told to do something like that, especially for something really traumatic. That is sort of, it's just part of the treatment. But yeah, that is a funny coincidence.
Isn't it funny? I was just there like,
Yeah,
wait a second, I actually know something about this. Wait
yeah,
a second,
yeah,
I'm reading this book and I know something about what's
yeah.
happening here for a change. Wow. Yep. Both Meg and Kat have good instincts. And is one better than the other in this cat and mouse game, or do they each have different strengths that make them like the cat or the mouse at any given time?
Hmm.
Trying to figure that one out, you know?
I think Meg is the sharper thinker, but I think that she's just had that developed over time. Living a life like she's lived, you really learn how to trust your instincts. And I think that Kat has over the years turned hers off.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so, like many women are told to turn them off, we are kind of conditioned to make sure everybody in the room is comfortable, even if we're not comfortable. And I think that Meg has sort of missed all of that training of how it is to be a nice woman in the world. And Kat is sort of fighting against that a little bit. A lot of what her instincts are telling her, she doesn't trust. And she doesn't know how to trust her gut in the way that Meg absolutely intuitively does.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's sort of what Kat has to learn in the book a little bit. And that's something that Meg can teach her.
Mm-hmm. And she's
Whether
watching a pro.
lesson or not. Yeah.
Definitely watch it. Time flips in the book a number of places. It goes back 10 years, then comes back. Did you write one time period before the other, or were you flipping yourself back and forth as you were like going back and saying, I need something from 10 years ago to get me to here?
Yeah, I wrote the 10 years ago section first because I needed to know how Meg got to where she is. And the only way to do that, the only way to write Meg in the present is to understand Meg in the past. Mm-hmm. And so, she didn't start out as somebody who wanted to be a con artist. She was kind of thrown into it. She was living in her car. She was homeless. And she was using dating sites to get meals, basically.
Mm-hmm.
She was going out on dates with people online. She would meet online and she would meet up with them for dinner as a way to be fed, basically, and working at the Y at the front counter, and maybe a place to sleep for the night that isn't her car. And it's unsustainable for her. And so she sees an opportunity. She sees a familiar face on one of the dating apps and realizes, hey, I know that guy. And, I think he's an okay guy. And maybe I could kind of hook on to him for a little bit, have a place to live. I don't think she's trying to fall in love, but I think what she's trying to do is just find a safe place where she can kind of get some money saved and get her feet under her, because she's realizing that the way she's doing it isn't working. And so I wanted the reader to have a little bit of sympathy for her going into it. But as she learns more and more and decides and realizes, this guy's not a good guy, and I actually have a skill set that I didn't realize I had, and I'm going to use it, and realizing that she's quite good at it. Mm-hmm. And then she's off and running,
Mm-hmm. And the scenes in the car, you feel for her. The scenes in the Y where I'm going to take a shower, and why weren't you at the front desk? Why weren't you here? Because she's also not letting on to everybody around her that anything is wrong. So there's lots of character going back and forth,
Yeah.
And I did love, Ron feels that he's one of the people that is a politician, is running. And the whole thing is this number of weeks before the election, what's going to happen? And he feels that people making big money will look the other way on what's right. They'll just this is what we don't care about. But the money also does not need a non-disclosure from the people he's working with. He's just oh, you're working with me. You're seeing you're going to make money. You're going to keep your mouth shut. And he really has this kind of self-confidence that I'm going to bring you around. So do you think that the driver was the money for a lot of the people that he was working with, or was it the con? It was the con of the deal. It was watching what he was doing and making money.
I think money is the driver. I mean, I think that for anybody like Ron Ashton, you know, if you can do something illegal and get away with it and make a lot of money, like it's a no-brainer, you know.
Yeah.
He's not interested in doing what's right, or what's fair, and Meg knows that about him and is counting on it. You know, she's counting on the fact that he has not changed in the 10 years since she's seen him last, pretty much, probably more like 16, but still, um you know, yeah.
And
And
it's
he
just like, oh, I'm not going to make you do anything. I'm just going to assume you're going to get money and you'll just keep your mouth shut
He'll
because
be
of that.
happy with how this relationship goes, basically,
Yeah.
is what he's telling her. And I think a lot of people in Los Angeles um, would be like, okay, you know, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to walk away from. It's a very expensive place to live. And a lot of people are looking for a leg up for, you know, and maybe they tell themselves, well, I'll only do it for a little while. It won't be that bad. But, you know, you compromise yourself when you do that.
Yeah, we won't hurt that many people. Like we won't, it's
Yeah.
not going to be that bad. But
No.
I'm going to get ahead and then I can get out and then
Yeah.
I'll be able to get out. But then the money, the stakes get bigger and bigger and you don't want to walk away.
It's harder to walk away. Yeah.
Who is easier to write, Meg or Kat?
Meg, for sure.
For sure.
It was harder. Yeah. It was harder to get Kat. I struggled with making sure that Kat's motivation was personal and not just because she wanted the story. I originally just had it as, you know, Kat was after her because she wanted the story, and it just didn't feel like enough, you know, like, get a life, lady, move on, you know. And so it really needed to be personal. And so I had to take more away from Kat in order for her to need this to happen. Whether it's rational or not. And Kat even acknowledges, you know, I understand that what I want is not necessarily a rational thing, but I still need it.
It's got to make it happen. Got to make it happen. The book is in a very short time period. It's a very short time, but with these flashbacks. So they've got challenges in that too, because they've got to get from place to place and thing to thing. Did you have all that mapped out of like, wait, we're going to need an hour to go here, or, you know, that little bit of fluidity that happens?
Yeah.
No LA traffic on any television show.
Yeah, I mean, it was challenging. It was challenging. I had a calendar that's, you know, starting in June when, you know, Kat and Meg are at that cocktail party together, and then, you know, moving forward and making sure that there was enough time for a relationship to develop and yet still get us to the election in November, which was Meg's deadline, basically. So
deadline to get out. Yeah, you write tension really well, and you have these cliffhanger paragraphs, and I just sit there and go, okay, all right, thanks a lot. I mean, I'm gonna got like another page, another chapter, another this, which is a good feeling, but oh my gosh, you don't get anything done. Did that happen at the revision stage, or are you like, have you gotten, okay, now you're on your second book, can you do it more, that first writing?
Book, yeah. This is my third book. Yeah. I think that for drafting, I have a good sense of like, this would be a good chapter end. Like I do that pretty early on. Yeah.
And was this writing experience different from the last flight?
They're all different. I mean, like, I've only written 3 books, but every book is different. I'm working on the next one now, and that one's different. It's just, they all sort of come the way they come, you know, and just like our children, they all are different. It would be nice if they were all the same, right? And then what worked with the first one, you could just do with the second one, but it's never that way.
Well, it's never that way when you're your kind of writer. There's some people that are writing the same thing and they're dropping in the characters like, okay, Sue was in that one, we'll put Mike in this one, you know.
Right. I suppose. But I mean, most authors that I've talked to, really, they do say it's just every book is different. Yeah.
Do you always think, did you think, I don't know if I can do another one, because I have a lot of authors friends go, I have no ideas, I'm out. And I say, well, just take a couple of months and you'll come back in. But it's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm up against, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I generally get my next idea about halfway through working on whatever book I'm currently working on. So, and that's held true with every single book. I got the idea for The Last Flight when I was, you know, probably in the middle of working on my first book, The Ones We Choose. And then I got the idea for The Lies I Tell when I was halfway through working on The Last Flight. And I got my idea for the book that I'm working on right now when I was about halfway through working on The Lies I Tell. So I just kind of count on it showing up, you know?
Yeah. It's got to keep showing up. Got to keep showing up.
Yeah.
Well, you also wrote an alternate ending to The Last Flight, which was really, really fun. It's being given out with indie stores that do certain buys or whatever. And I got to get a copy of it as well.
Oh, good.
And I'm not going to share anything about it, but what prompted you to do it? Was it a promotion opportunity, or you wanted to see how would that story have gone the other way?
A little bit of both. And so, with The Last Flight, I got a lot of messages from readers on Instagram, email, my author website. I mean, like, it was just everywhere. People asking me, like, why did you end the book that way? And now, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but like, why did you do that? Or some people loved it. Some people hated it. They needed a different ending. And so I was talking with my editor one day, and I said, what if we gave it to them? What if we gave them the alternate ending for the paperback release? Now, every other publisher that I am aware of, and the one that I worked with before Sourcebooks, would have been like, no, we're not doing that, right? No. But Sourcebooks, which is, a very smart and savvy organization where they're all about like breaking the mold and doing things differently, they were like, ooh, tell us more about that. And so I laid out the idea, and I thought, I don't know that this has ever been done where a book has been changed for the paperback version. And then, I was working on finishing up The Lies I Tell, and they asked, do you still want to do that for the paperback? And I just couldn't. I was like, I can't. I realized I would have to undo a lot of stuff in the book in order to make that ending work. And so I just said, I can't. I don't think I'm in the place to do that right now. I've got to focus on this. And so they came back to me a little bit later and said, what if we did like a bonus chapter for a pre-order campaign? Instead of a tote bag or stickers or whatever, we do an alternate ending to The Last Flight. Would you be willing to write it? And I said, yes, I would definitely do that. And so I sat down, I talked to like my good friend John, who was a flight attendant for Delta for a long, 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 long time. And I was like, talk me through how this could work. And so he did, and we did. And he was super helpful in helping me see how to make that happen. And so I hope that readers who were not happy with the ending of The Last Flight get a do-over, and it was really fun for me to kind of noodle through how to do it, because I think I've been thinking about it for a long time. I love the ending the way it is. I love how it is in the book. But it was really fun to kind of open up the opportunity for something different.
It's interesting. There's the book Paper Palace, and when people are reading this book, they have no idea what the ending is. And in my book group, 2 people thought one way, 5 people thought the other way, another one thought another.
My friends, yes.
And I had Miranda on for a book club chat. And we were taking a poll, and it was crazy to see back and forth.
Did she get a definitive answer? Because I would like to know. I mean, don't say it here. We can say it.
I'll tell you later.
I'll tell you later. Definitive answer?
But yes. Okay. But if you really read the last 3 pages,
that's what I was thinking.
Get it? I absolutely get it.
Yeah.
But you have to read the last 3 pages, and we read them aloud at book group. You read that, or you wouldn't have understood. And she was surprised at how many people didn't get it. Like she did not know who was going to be to the last 3 pages. But when she got to 3 pages, she thought she was very clear on what happened.
That's how I felt about The Last Flight. People are asking me, did she get on the plane or didn't she get on the plane? And I'm like, didn't you read the last chapter? Like, how is it not clear for you? But I mean, it's so vivid in my imagination that I see it so clearly that I can then understand, because people are racing to the end, just like I did with the Paper Palace. I was racing to the end to find out who she ended up with. And I remember being like, wait, didn't she? And then I had to go back, but I think I know. I mean, I went back and did some hard rereading to see. Yeah.
Right. But I really loved the number of people who thought she killed herself. I was like, I didn't have that one in my brain.
I didn't have that one either. Yeah.
I didn't have that in my brain at all.
Why would she go through all of that and then kill herself? That's terrible.
It was just, they said they thought she killed herself. So but it's just interesting because we think it's so clear in our heads, like what has ended up. Here, I'm seeing my ending. This is so clear. How did you not see this? And I'm like, maybe because we're so used to television telling us exactly what we saw.
I think so.
Exactly what we saw.
I will say that the ending to The Lies I Tell is very definitive, and also written sort of for all the people who did not like the ending for The Last Flight. So that's all I was going to say.
There's a little code at the end there that, okay, folks. what intrigues you about writing psychological suspense? What is it? Because I love reading it, but it's that way the stories come together.
I think the puzzle of putting it together in a way that's sort of different and it's not always linear, I think is fun, to kind of be with a lot of different people. I think that it's a fun and easy way to add tension when you're with more than one person. So I do a lot of multiple POV and a lot of multiple timelines because I think that is a really fresh way to sort of get into a lot of different places and a lot of different times. And that creates a lot of conflict between characters and between the reader and the story. So I really love that. And I love kind of playing around with some of those structures. I think is interesting and fun.
Yeah. You drop in the zone to do this, like when you're I remember when you're in school during the year, your teacher, you weren't right at 4 a.m. Do you do that also during the summer?
I do. I feel like it would be too hard for me. It would be like moving across the country twice a year. As far as sleep and stuff, like sleep is really important to me. And so I feel like if I just kind of stay consistent with my schedule. And the other thing too is like during the summertime when I'm not teaching, I still feel like I need a vacation. I need to not be working. And what I don't want to do is then have my vacation time eaten up by writing work. And I don't find that I'm more productive when I'm not working because I have my 2.5, 3 hours in the morning to work. And then it's like 7 o'clock and I'm done for the day, which is just a lovely feeling,
It's lovely because it's like completely done. It's opposed to putting it off. I was reading a book the other day and the woman is putting off writing her thesis and she's putting off writing her thesis and I'm vacation land. And I was just there. I would be up so much stress, like not having that done. It'd be.
Well, I get really angry when I save work for later in the day. I get really mad at myself. Like, why did I do that? Oh.
Right.
And I get resentful of the work. Whereas if I wake up first thing in the morning and it's just what I do, then I'm dancing through the rest of the day, easy peasy,
Yeah. It's okay. So when you're doing, if you're writing something and it keeps going, do you ever go past 7 o'clock and go, I'm on a roll, I'm on a roll, I'm on a roll. You'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. If I can.
Not during the school year, but you got to get to school. But during the year, it's like if you get someplace, do you take notes during the day of things like?
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes. But most of the time, right, when I'm done writing for the day, I take a moment and in my notebook, I kind of jot down like tomorrow, what do I need to do? So that, because when I wake up, I'm tired, it's 3:45 in the morning, I'm a little groggy. But so it really helps if like yesterday, Julie kind of tells today's Julie what to do. I just need a direction, because it's been a long time. I've done a lot of things between the last time I was working on the book and taught a full day, made dinner, whatever. And it's helpful to be like, oh yes, today I'm working on this.
This is where I'm going to get started. So was this always the title, The Lies I Tell?
No, it wasn't. The original title was The Long Con. Yeah, I know. I didn't love it. Most books loved it. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I think it would have been good. And so they have a whole process for how to sort of test market titles and covers. And so they test marketed a lot of titles, and this was the one that came back as the one that would sell the most. And same thing with the cover.
The cover, yeah, it's a great cover.
Yeah.
So it was like, it wasn't the first go round, but it was definitely worth playing through. It really is. It's terrific.
Yes.
So, okay. Do you have random ideas written down that you think you might tinker with on a later book at any point, or you're in what you're doing?
I'm in what I'm doing. And I don't generally, if I get an idea for something, I don't write it down, because if it's an idea that I really, really want to do, it'll keep coming up.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
And
I'll keep coming up with it.
So are you in every 2 year writer, or what are
my pace right now? Yeah. I can't do a book a year. I just don't think I could produce something good in a year. And I feel like two years is a good pace for me with what I have on my plate aside from writing. So
I think it's a year, then it's another time for people to discover the paperback. People are discovering books a lot more slowly than we think they are. That's what I'm seeing these days.
Yeah.
It is not this well, people hadn't been out in stores in a really long time. And
Yeah.
now they're really out on vacations and doing all, like everything they wanted to do. And I
Yeah.
just feel like it's taking people longer. And also with the economy the way that it is right now, they've got to really know this is something they want to buy. This is something they want to get invested in reading. And that's just what I'm seeing at this point. But
Yeah.
because you were such a good surefire with the last fight, I see people saying, okay, I could bank on her again. Like it's worth the
Yeah.
buy, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting a lot of messages from people who have already read The Lies I Tell, and they're now saying like, that's 2 in a row. So you're an auto buy, which is so nice to hear as an author. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
So the tour this time is a mix of live and virtual.
Mostly
So
live. Yeah.
mostly live. So what are you looking for? Well, last week was a little taste when we were at Thriller Fest of being out on the road, and it's exhausting talking to
It's
people again.
exhausting. Yes, it is
You haven't done
exhausting.
this. You know?
I'm gonna be all over the place. I'm gonna be in New Jersey and Delaware and Arizona and Texas and California, all over the place, and Washington. And so yeah, a lot of places, Chicago. And so yeah, I'll be traveling for I think I'm looking at my calendar right now. I think I start really in earnest on the 23rd,
Mhm.
and I think I finish around the 23rd of July. I mean, I
Yeah.
have a little bit of a break in there for the 4th, but yeah.
It's a packed tour schedule, and you're
Yeah.
going to a lot of places. I'm hoping to see you when you're in New Jersey, but
Yeah.
it's fun because you're going to see and meet a lot more people as a result. Because last time everything was virtual,
Everything
everything was.
online. Yeah. And so I didn't really get to engage with readers in the way that I wanted to. I did a lot of book clubs, which was
Mhm.
great. But I didn't get into any stores. I didn't get to engage with booksellers in the way that you can when you're on a tour and
Mhm.
going all over the place, and readers too, So I'm hoping that, people will show up and come out and, get their book signed. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I remember I met you at the American Booksellers Association. I guess it was in 2020, right before the
Like,
world
yeah.
where everything shut down. And you gave me the best pitch for your book that I've ever heard. Like you just sat there and I was like, get me that book, get me that
Yeah.
book now. So
Yeah.
I know that like the way you like think about the marketing, because you're not just thinking about the book itself, you're thinking about the marketing and everything as well. And I think that's super, super, super important. Does being away from your desk sometimes inspire your writing? I mean, I know if I could fly to LA like once a week and just fly back, I'd get a lot more thinking done without, especially when there was no Wi-Fi. When there was no Wi-Fi, it was really great, you know?
No, I'm not a work on the road kind of person. I have a hard time focusing. I thought I brought my computer and my notebooks and everything, and I thought, oh, I don't have anything in the mornings. I'll be able to go for a walk in the park and get some work done. And I just was like too excited to be there that I couldn't,
Right.
I can't really focus when I'm on the road. So I'm gonna try to keep working on this next book while I am out and about. I mean, but if I don't, I don't. I've already made a promise to myself that I will be kind to myself if I don't.
Very, very wise. And to stay in the moment, because it's an important moment, because you've got that moment of talking to the booksellers way up front. You
Yeah.
miss that moment in the middle. And to go
Mhm.
back and have that moment of people just saying, I'm a fan, will be pretty cool. It's
I
going to
hope
be really
so.
pretty cool.
Yeah, I hope so.
I'm so excited for you. I'm looking forward to seeing you again and
Yes.
wish you so, so much luck with this book.
Thank you. Thank you.
And to our readers, look forward to seeing you next time on Book Reporter Talks to.